We are not envious of the child in that sense, because it's not that the child has something which we don't have. But no, we ventilate this envious state of heart on anybody, even on children. You know? And basically what happens is that if we want to be the big enjoyer, we try and use any relationship to establish our superiority. That's what's happening. And often this is so subtle that we are not even mindful of it. We are not even conscious of it. We don't even identify it. So of course I have given this topic in many parts of the world, and often people say, oh, this was a heart surgery. I realize I've got it all, you know. Yes, so be ready for a little heart surgery. Yes. Yes, so I would like to discuss with you one verse from the Bhagavatam actually. And no need to look it up on the phone, because I would like you to hear very attentively, and then we do it a little interactively, that we collect all the different aspects of the envious and non-envious behavior towards seniors equals juniors. So there is this nice verse, 4th canto, 8th chapter, verse 34. Where Prabhupada in very simple words he describes things. And when we read the Bhagavatam, we may even miss how profound it actually is. You know, very often it goes like that we just read over the deeper, profound things, and we miss to unpack it a bit more and unfold it and actually look a little more deeper what Prabhupada says. So let me just once change through the Sanskrit and then we do translation. Gunadikan mudam lipset anukusham gunadamat maitim samanat anvichen matapir avibhuyate. So the translation is as follows. Every man, and here man meaning human, not man in opposition to woman. You know, Prabhupada often uses man meaning human being. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate towards him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. So that's already an amazing statement, that if we just learn how to act in a non-envious way, we are never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. Wow, you know, that sounds good, doesn't it? Yes. So that's why, envy is actually the root cause of all our miseries, you know. Yeah. So now, Prabhupada comments. Generally, when we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. So he uses that term envy in that sense towards somebody who's got something which we don't have. When we find someone less qualified, we deride him. And when we find someone equal, we become very proud of our activities. These are the causes of all material tribulations. So one more time, that statement is made. You know, how envy is the root cause of all miseries. The great sage Narada therefore advised that a devotee should act perfectly. Instead of being envious of a more qualified man, one should be jolly to receive him. Instead of being oppressive to a less qualified man, one should be compassionate towards him just to raise him to the proper standard. And when one meets an equal, instead of being proud of one's own activities before him, one should treat him as a friend. One should also have compassion for the people in general who are suffering due to forgetfulness of Krishna. And now comes the last sentence. In purports often we can see the last sentence, Prabhupada one more time hits the nail on the head. He says, these important functions will make one happy within this material world. So a third time this topic is established, that if we just learn how to be non-envious, we actually can be happy. Even here in Pune. So even though we may say, well, aren't we always saying that in this material world we cannot be happy? But now Prabhupada says we can be happy. So how do we understand that? Well, there's nice descriptions of the atmosphere in the spiritual world. How in the spiritual world, the residents, they have no desire for sense gratification. And therefore, there is no envy there. Right? Yes. Envy, sense gratification, absent in the spiritual world. So now, when a person is here in the material world and is actually truly non-envious, he must be a pure devotee. You know? Only a person who is free of any desire to enjoy, even in subtle ways, controlling and so this has to be a pure devotee. So, and a pure devotee, we can say, in one sense, is not part of this material world. You know? Pure devotee in the consciousness and the mind is already in the spiritual world. So therefore, he or she can be happy, you know, no matter where he or she is. You know? So that's how we can understand that this seemingly contradictory statement is not contradictory after all. You know? Yes. So now let us have a look at these three different types of relationships. So let us have a look towards seniors. Who remembers what is the non-envious way of receiving a senior when we are not envious? Joyful, jolly, happy. So in other words, usually I start with an envious one and I like to finish with a good way of association. So an envious person, how will he receive a senior? Not being so happy at all, right? Oh no, not he is coming. Okay. And then with a plastic smile we may say, oh nice to see you, Prabhu. How long are you staying? Oh, 3 days. Okay, good. You know, and we think, oh yeah, thank God, after 3 days he's going again. So I have the scene to myself here and I can be the center of attention and all that. You know? So what else do we do? That's not everything. How do we act if we are envious and a senior person comes? What do we do? Any suggestions? That's not from the purport. What do we do? Come on. You're not envious, you don't know. What do we do?
Try to somehow downplay their greatness and just project that, no, I am.
Exactly.
I should be, everyone should just look at me and serve me.
Yes. So how do we try and minimize that person's importance? What do we do practically? Huh? We ignore him. This is one way. We ignore him. We don't give him any attention. You know? He's nobody, nothing. not worthwhile even saying Hare Krishna or something. Yes, ignoring. Yes. And then there's one other thing we like to do, and we're all pretty good at that. What do we do? Yes, we will not serve properly. That's also there.
We also try to say to them, explain them how great I am.
Okay.
This is what I did, this is what I did, this is what I did.
Yeah, this is also there, definitely. And yeah, we get to that point a little later. So what else do we do? I heard it quietly there in the back.
We start finding the fault.
Yes, fault finding, criticizing, we speak bad about him behind his back. Actually, he's not that good. I know something that you may not know. Yes, yeah. Just to reduce his importance and to establish ourselves in a superior position, saying indirectly, actually, I don't have that problem, but he has. And that's why I'm actually better. You know? And we can imagine a very practical situation in everyday life in an Eastern temple. Let's imagine a preacher comes and gives a class, and then a friend of ours says to us, "Oh, that was a nice class, wasn't it?" And then we say, "Yeah, it was all right, but..." But he didn't quote that many verses, it was not that Shastric. You know? We find something to reduce his position. In other words, we say, if I had given the class, I would have definitely given so many more verses and Shastric references, and that way my class would have been better. Yes, so now the interesting point is that even if it is true that he was not quoting so many verses, even if it is true, but just the fact that we have that urge to express it actually indicates envy. And very easily we miss this point. Actually, our previous Acharya Sridhar Swami, he's saying, whether it's true or not, talking about the faults of a Vaishnava means we blaspheme him. And this is really something which we often miss. We think, well, it's true. Can't I speak the truth? Freedom of speech, modern India, what is this? I can't say the truth. And after all, I'm just sharing with my friend my experience in the class. What's wrong with that? Yeah. So the contaminated intelligence justifies why we are okay to say this. But if we catch ourselves doing these things and we honestly look in our heart, we will discover that there is some envy there, and that's why we have to make that statement. So it often goes on in a very subtle way and it remains undetected, not identified. But it actually is a sign of envy. So let us move on to the non-envious behavior. Meeting the senior. So we said already, we are jolly to receive him, and truly jolly, not just with some plastic smile in the face or something, but truly from the heart we are jolly. And what else do we do? How do we associate with a senior? We listen to each and every instruction of them. Well, let's balance it a little bit. We do also have to discriminate a little bit, because not everybody who is senior, we follow everything. We have to discriminate a little bit. But no, what are the basic things? You are going in the right direction. So what do we do? How we are meant to associate with the senior? Yeah, we inquire. We hear from them. And what else? Yes, we offer menial service. We want to serve and we want to hear. So then after hearing, we may have to discriminate a little bit. We may have to double check with our counselor or something, you know. Because there's all kinds of things going on, you know, and all kinds of moods and visions and so on. So it's not that just by him being senior, we follow everything, you know. But we need to discriminate a little bit. But we associate by hearing and inquiring. And then we get some idea where that person is at, you know, and how much this fits in our mood and all this, you know. Yes. Yeah, so and these 2 points of hearing and serving, Pariprashnena Sevaya, we have it in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's not only towards Guru that we act in that way, but actually towards any person who is more experienced than we are. And these 2 aspects, they enhance each other. So the more we serve in a humble mood, the more we feel inspired to hear. And then the more we hear, we want to serve more. And the more we serve, we want to even hear and inquire more. So these are 2 very important principles for making advancement, the hearing and the serving. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, see, and there I usually like to make this point when it comes to inquiry, that these days, rather than inquiring, people love to talk about themselves, right? You may have noticed this also, what they've all been doing, all their big achievements, and this and that and this and that. And again, it's all in the mood of I'm just sharing, you know, so we can justify all these subtle things, you know. But to talk about oneself in the presence of a senior, this would really be a little inappropriate, unless the person asks us, so what are you doing, what is your work, what is your service? So then we can hardly share. But if we just carry on talking about ourselves, then it looks a little bit like we want to show off and impress that person how great we are and all that. Yes. And I mean, even in situations, let's imagine we are talking to somebody at the Sunday program or something, and then a senior person joins us. So usually the etiquette is we are handing the situation over to him, we let him answer the questions. We don't just preach and, you know, talk and talk in the presence of a senior. That also easily has that mood of and flavor of showing off and giving that impression that we are such a great preacher or something. Yes, so now let us have a look at juniors. When we are envious, how do we treat juniors? What did Prabhupada say? Who can remember? We derive the compassion. You're a step ahead of us. That is the non-envious one. But the envious one is we deride. We push them down. We treat them in a condescending way. You know, pushing down. Yes. So the mood is, all right, I want you to come up, of course, but not higher than I am. Right? I'm always up here and you will always remain down there. And that's the way it is. You know? And we want to make sure that that person stays below us. That is definitely a sign of envy. You know? Yes, and what else do we do when we are envious with juniors? There's a few more things we do. What else?
We try to show off.
Try to show off, yeah, could be. You know, that we use our superior position even though we have the superiority already, but we try in a perverted way to enjoy this by even showing off more, or even this pushing down the person. It is also some perverted way of enjoying that superiority, you know. And also, maybe it's not so easy to guess, but when we unnecessarily or overly harshly and constantly chastise somebody, you know? When we are all the time in a harsh way picking on somebody and oh, again you did this wrong and my God and oh, so foolish and you know, this is very, yeah, this is very oppressive somehow, you know. Yeah, and this, yeah, and this is the point where we don't want to fall into that trap of thinking, oh, just see, that's why my superior chastises me all the time. He must be envious, you know? So let's not go that way. But if we catch ourselves acting in this way, then maybe there's some envy there, you know? Yes. And this sometimes also comes out towards children, you know? That we, let's say, I mean, probably many of you ladies are working in the corporate world there, maybe 8 hours a day. I've watched this in the Western world when women are exhausted, coming home in the evening, picking up their kid from the daycare center. And then there's all this frustration and anger and envy in their heart, and then they're all ventilating it on the kid, you know, and screaming at the kid for no reason, and kid doesn't even know what's going on, too small to even understand, you know. Oh yeah, I've seen these things. I mean, in the Western world, you only have to go to a supermarket around 5:30, 6 o'clock, you know, then you meet the mothers with their little kid, and they quickly do the shopping. And the child hasn't seen the mother the whole day. And the mother is all irritated and frustrated and tired. And she screams there, and the kid makes a whole tantrum there in the middle of the supermarket, you know. So yeah, this, you know, very easily we ventilate that frustration and envy and anger on the child, you know. So we have to be very careful, you know, very, very careful. Actually, there is even the rule of Vaishnava etiquette that one should not correct anybody unless one is non-envious. So, but we just said almost everyone is envious. So that means nobody can correct anybody. So what to do about that? So, well, at least we should be mindful, because it's really like that, even if the correction is perfect. But if it is given with envy or some huffy, false ego mood, it actually contaminates that person's heart. It will not be uplifting. Yeah. Because consciousness travels on sound vibration coming out of our mouth. So if we are in an angry, agitated, huffy mood, then that consciousness will come out, even though the correction may be perfect. But because it's given with that consciousness, it poisons actually everything. And we may have had that experience in our life, you know, being on both ends, giving a correction in that huffy mood, or receiving it from somebody who is in that mood. So how do we feel? How do we feel when we give or receive a correction in that agitated mood? How do we feel? Do we feel good? No, we have a really ugly feeling. And we may be confused, if we give the correction and we think, well, but I have to give the correction and the correction is right. So why do I feel so bad? That's the contamination of envy and false ego. False ego and envy, they're good friends, by the way. They always like to move around together. Yeah, that's the contaminating effect of false ego. So that's why we should never give instruction, correction when we find ourselves in this agitated frame of mind. Yes. Sometimes, I'm sure we all know the situation, we see somebody doing something wrong and I have to tell her right now, how can you do this? And that urge is so strong we can hardly even control it. We have to say it right now. Right? You've had that situation? Yes? So, why are we so, that we have to give this right now? It's a false ego. False ego is pushing us, to establish that we know better and we are right and how can we do this and so that's the false ego pushing, demanding that satisfaction of knowing better and being right. Yes. So we should never ever give a correction in that mood. When we find ourselves in that mood, we should bite our tongue, control our speech, our urge to speak, and we should just wait until we cool down. A good tip is to sleep it over. And the next morning, life is already differently. The world we see with different eyes. Confirmed. So sleep it over. Wait until you really cool down. And then, helpful to have this prayerful mood of praying to Krishna, or please Krishna, help me to get this instruction across in a really well-wishing mood, wanting their very best, wanting them to be successful. So if we have that prayerful mood before we give the instruction, then Krishna allows us to be non-envious at least for those 2 minutes when we give the correction. Like that. And then the correction will be accepted because the person can feel, actually he or she is my well-wishing friend, they want my very best, and then it is welcomed. But if we give this correction in this huffy, agitated mood, it will not be uplifting for anybody, including ourselves. So good to know these things. Also sometimes we can observe when we delegate a task to somebody junior, good delegation would be to follow up. Right? Then we ask, so how are you doing? You need some good tips, you need more money, you need some manpower, you're doing all right, and so we follow up. So that's a sign that we want that person to be successful. But very often we see a different mood. We see this mood, either you do it or I do it. And okay, you want to do it? Good luck, you do it. I'm too busy, you want to do it? Okay. And then maybe in our heart we are hoping that he will not be successful. And then we can say, just see, I knew I should have done it. But you wanted to do it, right? So there you see what comes out of it. I should have done it, right? This is more like an envious way of delegating, that we actually don't want that person to be successful, and definitely not more successful than as if I had done it. Yeah, so these things often sneak into our behavior and we don't even identify these things, because it's all pretty subtle. Yes, what else do I have here on my list? Oh yeah, also when we make fun out of a person in public, having a good laugh at his expense, making him look foolish or something, this is also a way of putting people down. Or if we have this mood of being very impatient, or I don't have time for you, I'm so important and who are you? You're nobody, and I can't work with this person and he's nothing and I'm so great and important and all that kind of thing. Or if we give a person over a longer period of time very menial service, we don't want to engage him according to his propensities, because also maybe we're afraid that the person will become more competent than we are. So even though Prabhupada did say when a person with material qualification comes to ISKCON, in order for them to become a humble servant, they should actually first do some menial service. But if that goes on for years, and we don't allow people to do something a bit more qualified or something, so that can also indicate envy. But also, yes, as I said, if we empower materially qualified people too quickly, then very easily they become proud and they can ruin their whole cultivation of bhakti. If very new people already get some control over people or something, so this can be very detrimental for them because they don't have that spiritual maturity. So we have to be careful that we don't judge people only according to their material qualification. So the spiritual qualification also has to be there, especially if the person is in charge of others. Okay, so let us move on to the envious behavior towards, non-envious behavior towards juniors. So how is that? More fresh air. So that gives me a bit more air. Yes. I'm working hard here, so I'm sweating. Yes, there you go. Yeah, all right. I hope there's no mosquitoes around. No? Okay. All right. Yeah, so non-envious behavior towards juniors. What did Prabhupada say? Compassion. Yes. We reach out with compassion, with affection. We try to affectionately uplift them and wanting them to grow and flourish and wanting them to be more successful than we are. That really requires non-envy, to make somebody more glorious and successful than we are, and be truly happy in our heart. That requires non-envy. Also, a non-envious person is very expert in connecting with anybody for their upliftment, for their ultimate benefit. And Prabhupada himself, he was such an amazing example. Prabhupada could connect with children, with a hippie, with a drunkard, with a scientist, with a Christian priest, doesn't matter with whom. Prabhupada knew how to connect with that person for their benefit, for their upliftment. And sometimes Prabhupada was quite heavy, calling people fools and rascals and mutas and all kinds of things. And Prabhupada sometimes was saying, well, I'm an old man, I can do that. But actually the real reason is he was 1,000% non-envious, and that's why he could talk like that, And people could feel, they could feel that Prabhupada was non-envious and that Prabhupada spoke like that out of loving concern, that he wanted to help people, and uplift them. So people could feel that. So as a rule, they were not getting offended. They were not. There's this nice story, I think it was in Melbourne, Shutakirti people describes it, where Prabhupada was sitting in the car with some of his disciples coming back from an early morning walk. And, in big cities, 6 o'clock already, people are rushing to work. So one devotee in the car was saying, "Look, Srila Prabhupada, all these mudhas going to work." So, and then Prabhupada's response was, in a very different mood. He said, "Yes, how can we save them?" That was Prabhupada's response. So, and then that devotee was a little surprised looking over to Prabhupada, and he saw that Prabhupada was actually crying a tear. Yes, how can we save them? But the devotee who said this comment about the mudhas, he was in a different mood. He was putting them down, look at these mudhas, thank God I'm not one of them, type thing, So there was a bit of arrogance, a bit of envy there, but Prabhupada was in a very different mood. Yeah, so we have to be careful that we don't imitate Prabhupada, Just the fact that he spoke strongly like this doesn't mean that we can imitate this, Yeah, sometimes, I don't know, maybe not so much in India, but in the Western world, sometimes people talk about the karmis, the karmis, You have to be careful because it's not that long ago that we were part of them, and or labeling people, or he's not a devotee, this, this all, not so good ways of dealing with people, or talking about them, putting them in boxes. He's not a devotee, or kami. Okay, so now equals. What's the envious behavior amongst equals? Who remembers from the verse of Prabhupada? What did Prabhupada say? If two equals meet who are envious, that's not envious. You're a step ahead of us. How do the envious associate? What do they do?
We become proud of our activity.
Yeah, that's exactly what Prabhupada said. We become proud of our activities. We like to chant our glories, talking about our big achievements and. I mean, we like to do that towards anybody, but especially towards equals. And the mood is there. All right, we are equal, but actually I'm a little superior. And I'm going to prove it to you by showing off and boasting and chanting our own glories. So we can imagine two not so mature preachers meet. Oh yeah, no, the picture's not so clear anymore, but anyway, let me have some fresh air here. Two not so mature preachers meet, equals. And then one says to the other, "Oh yes, guess what? I was at the Rath Yatra in Delhi, and they invited me to lead the kirtan. YouTube, you want to see? I'll show you. I'll send you the link, me leading the kirtan. And then I flew to New York, and again Rath Yatra, and again they invited me to lead the kirtan. And stage program, even though there were so many Maharajas there, I was the main speaker. The Swamis must have been tired, so I was talking and. So carrying on and on and on. You know, and then at the end he says, and what about you, Prabhu? What did you do? And by then the other person thinks, oh my God, he's so great, I'm a nobody. You won the competition. Yeah, so this is what's going on quite commonly. Again, we can cover it all up by saying, well, I'm just sharing with my friend what I've been doing. What's wrong with that? You know? But yeah, it's so subtle. What mood, what consciousness we share these things. You know? Yeah, so that's how it goes on. You know, we like to boast and show off, and we have the competition there. You know? And what about the non-envious behavior amongst equals? Friendship, yes. So to some extent we can say, well, friendship can also be there with seniors or with juniors. So what's the specialty amongst the friendship amongst equals who are non-envious? There is also some kind of competition here, but that competition is very different. What's that competition like? Try to learn from each other, yes. Sorry? They glorify each other. What else do they do? Help each other to do more. Yeah, we're getting closer. They actually push each other forward, right? Because out of Vaishnava humility, they consider themselves less experienced. And they actually treat the other person like a senior. They want to serve them, they want to inquire and hear from them. And then when there's somebody else to give the class, okay, you Prabhu, you should give the class, I want to hear from you. And you lead the kirtan. You know, your kirtans are so vibrant and dynamic. So they push each other forward rather than themselves. And that's exactly the mood in the spiritual world also. It is said that the gopis, they get more bliss and joy pushing the other gopis towards Krishna and assisting them to give pleasure to the Lord rather than pushing themselves. Yes, yes. So, but we imagine if our Guru Maharaj comes, do we have that mood, pushing the others forward? I don't think so. You know, we want to be recognized, we want to be there in the front, we want to be noticed by him and look like a good disciple and all this, you know. Yeah, so it just shows what a long way we have to go to get there, you know, to be allowed to enter in the spiritual world, you know. Yes, and also the special friendship is especially sweet and confidential because both inquire about each other's secrets in their devotional life. You know, that one says to the other, you've been a brahmachari for 35 years, distributing books on the street. How do you do it? What's your secret? And then the other one says, and you've been married for 35 years. What's your secret? How do you do it? And you're still making, you know, doing service, following everything and raising your kids and tolerating the wife. My God, how do you do it? You know, like that. So there's this very intimate inquiry, which we can only do on the levels of equals. You know? Towards seniors, we have to be a little careful not to be too intruding there, what's your secret, you know, and juniors also, we cannot inquire like that. But only amongst equals who are non-envious, that special sweetness and intimacy in a friendship can be there. That's what makes that friendship very special. But the price to pay is to be non-envious, you know. Yeah. That's the price to pay. So now my question to you, what do you think? Which type of relationship is most purifying? With seniors, with equals, with juniors? What do you think? What? With equals, any other suggestion? With juniors, okay. Any other suggestion? With seniors, is it? Yes. No, it is with equals. Yes. Of course, especially in a beginning stage of devotional life, we do get a lot of benefit associated with seniors. But amongst equals, that's where we have to show, where our true color comes out, whether we are servants or whether we just want to be that little bit more superior and be the master after all. Yeah, so it comes out amongst equals. Yeah. To share one's influence with a similarly influential person, this is the biggest challenge for the false ego, for envy. This eco-association brings really the most pinching and biting form of envy to the surface. And we may sometimes even avoid it. Of course, as a younger devotee, it's quite natural. We have a lot of equal association with other young devotees. But then as we become more and more senior, so-called, whatever, then often we don't have so much equal association. And we may even feel a little uncomfortable. We may try and avoid it. And again, the contaminated intelligence gives all the reasons. Yes, I'm too busy with my projects and my devotees and I have no time. Actually here, how do you practice the counselor system? Do the counselors meet also regularly? Yeah. And how often do they meet? Once in a month. Yeah. I'm very familiar with this whole system because I've been preaching in Ukraine for over 25 years. And actually Narendra Swami took that counselor system from Varna Swami and he brought it in his GBC zone. And in Ukraine, now the war, everything is upside down anyway. But they are still, it's amazing how these devotees continue preaching and practicing and go out in distribution. They're really heroes there, There they have the system even that people meet more often. The counselor, as a rule, meets every week with his counselees. And the counselors meet every 2 weeks. So one meeting is every week, the other one is every 2 weeks. So that's why this is so important to have the counselors also meet, that they have that eco-association. Otherwise, very easily we get all big independent leaders with their groups and so on. So good to have that eco-association there. And I've seen in Ukraine when we started the whole council system there, in some communities it was a challenge for the equals to meet, They could hardly associate. They were arguing over philosophical things and this and that and my God, or they didn't want to meet and, it was a whole churning process there just to clear the atmosphere first before they actually can start being counselors, Yeah, so that's why this is very important, the eco-association. And we may have that experience that, say, 2 expert cooks are cooking lunch for Guru Maharaj. This can be pretty intense. If it's 1 expert, 1 helper, no problem. But 2 experts, oh my God, there's immediately that competition there. Who knows better? And don't you know Gurmaj changed his diet and now he wants this and last time he liked it like that and oh my God, you know. I've seen devotees stealing each other's pots and boga or, you know, the topmost example of envy is when the person in charge says, no need to serve this to Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj will not like it. He cannot have it. It's not according to his diet. Take it away. No need to serve. You know? What is this? Why not serving it? Why not let him have a look at it? You know, he may want to try one little spoon. You know, but to just say, no, take it out. No need to serve. I know he can't have it. So that sounds a little bit like envy there. You know? Yes. Or sometimes similar thing happens on the altar, you know, two expert pujaris dressing up the deities for Janmashtami or something can also be pretty intense. Who's got the better idea and all this? Yes. And I mean, in the Shastra, we have nice examples, Prithu Maharaj and Indra. When Prithu Maharaj wants to do the 100th horse sacrifice. While Indra had 100, Prithu Maharaj 99, no problem. You know? Everything was fine. But as soon as Prithu Maharaj wanted to do the 100th, so what does Indra do? He steals the horse, like stealing the pots or the boga, you know, so the yagya can't go on, you know. Yes. Yes. Or another good example is when Lord Brahma wanted to visit the Lord in Vaikuntha, and the gatekeepers asked him, oh, who are you? Lord Brahma, are you? You know, and Lord Brahma gets all irritated. What do you know? I'm Lord, what do you think? I'm Lord Brahma, don't you know who I am? So then the Lord calls all the Lord Brahmas from all the universes, giving him equal association. So, and then our Lord Brahma realizes, okay, I've got only 4 heads, the others have many more heads than me, 10, 100,000, okay, oh, better be humble here, I'm not the only one, you know. Yeah, so we can also sometimes become a bit of a Lord Brahma there in our area, you know, and that's why it's good to have equal association. That's even the idea behind the ILS in Mayapur, you know, the ISKCON Leadership Sangha, and also the Guru Sannyas GBC Sangha. They have every other year, you know, every 2 years is the ILS. Coming year it will be again. And last year we had the Guru Sannyas GBC Sangha in Mayapur. So these things were consciously introduced just to give people equal association, you know? Yes, because even on the leadership level, we need this equal association. Very important, you know? Yes. Actually, His Holiness Radha Swami, he has this famous formula for association. You may know it, since some of you are his disciples. He says out of 100% of association, 60 should be spent with equals, and only 20 with juniors, and 20 with the top. But 60% equal association. Wow. Yes. So again, while we are in the beginning stage, it may not be so difficult to get that equal association, but then as we mature, you know, 60% equal association for a person who is in a more senior leading position, this is very difficult, you know. Yes. I mean, when I heard about this formula first time, I was running to Narendra Swami, was saying, oh, I don't have 60% equal association, what am I going to do, you know? Yeah, because, you know, if you're constantly traveling, you only hear yourself talk all the time, you know. So, and how much equal association do I have? Well, sometimes on festivals or in Mayapur, ILS and so on, you know. But yeah, actually, Niranja Swami gave me a good advice. He said, be alert in fear. You know, be conscious that you don't have so much ego association, and when you can get it, be eager for it, don't avoid it. You know? Yes. Yeah. So yeah, be alert in fear. That's a good one. Yes. Know that you're leading a risky life for the sake of preaching. Yes. Well, this is basically what I wanted to share. So let me see what questions we have, since it is